everyone, and welcome. We are so excited for startups all around the world to be joining us. And I get to talk about how to build AI-powered applications without any machine learning expertise. So if you are a developer, frankly, if you're a product manager or a business decision maker and you're just wondering how to apply machine learning to your business, how to get those quick wins, this is the talk for you. Quick introduction about myself. My name is Allie Miller, and I serve as the Global Head of Machine Learning Business Development for Startups and Venture Capital at AWS. My job that I am fortunate enough to do is to work with the world's best startups and to figure out how to put machine learning into the hands of every startup around the world. Now, when we think about what we want to get out of this talk, there are 250 ML releases this past year. I will not be able to cover all 250 in the next 30 minutes, despite me trying my absolute hardest. So we are going to be narrowing the focus, really making it easy for you guys to get your feet wet in machine learning. And we're going to be covering some of the most popular use cases for startups. We're going to be covering 7 easy machine learning products that your team can get started with. And because I am always passionate about upskilling teams, especially within startups, we're going to be giving some resources so that your team can learn machine learning as a whole. Now, it's important to know that there is an entire organization within AWS dedicated to the success of startups. Most of our team is built up of ex-founders, ex-VCs, ex-early operators. So we've been in the trenches, we've been where you are, and we've helped grow businesses like Airbnb and Netflix. And so we are working with these startups as early as, university programs, accelerators, incubators, studios, all through 5 seconds before they ring the bell when they go public or when they get acquired. Couple ways that we're helping startups, we like to think about it as like ABC, Activate, Build, Connect. So within Activate, this is about getting started. This is about upskilling with free ML workshops, getting started with ML POC credits that you guys can experiment quickly. Within Build, this is where we're talking about technical support, our broadest and deepest set of machine learning products, and how we're connecting you to co-marketing opportunities. We love highlighting startups that have chosen to platform on AWS, and we love being able to share your stories, your successes, so that you guys can grow. This is about bringing AWS resources into the world of startups. And last, when we think of Connect, we're not just working with the startups themselves. AWS has partnered with the top ecosystem partners all over the world. As I mentioned, accelerators, incubators, studios, VCs, partners like NVIDIA, and we're making sure that we're bringing that whole ecosystem together so that you can have top line growth, so that you can meet enterprise customers who want to use your product. Now, as I mentioned, AWS had over 250 releases just for machine learning just this past year. You will be overwhelmed even when I share a portion of that. And so my goal for you all during this talk is try and minimize the noise, right? In machine learning, that's what we're trying to do, denoise data. So I'm gonna ask that you guys denoise the data that I also share in this presentation. I'm going to be sharing those popular use cases, those easy products. Your goal is to pick 1 or 2 to get started with. I highly encourage you all to screenshot what that 1 or 2 might be, share that screenshot with your team, make sure that your team knows about how to incorporate machine learning, and let's get started. Now, if you're attending this talk, and frankly, if you're even attending this conference, you probably already know that AI and machine learning is revolutionizing the world now and will continue to do so for the next several decades. It is my job to remind you of how important this is and why it's important not to wait and to take advantage of these efficiencies that machine learning is bringing into startups already. Now, 2 stats that I want to highlight are the second and third on this slide. Startups in the world of machine learning raised $9.9 billion in the second half of 2020, which is a 15% year-over-year increase in the same window. And LinkedIn reported that during the COVID slowdown, while hiring at overall unicorns was down 30%, hiring in machine learning was up 10%. This is still such a rich, ripe world to dive into. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that our APIs, that our platforms are accessible to all developers and data scientists so that everyone can take advantage of the power of machine learning. Now, a lot of you are likely familiar with Amazon and our machine learning work as a whole, but I'm here to remind you that Amazon is a machine learning driven company that has been building and contributing to ML developments for over 20 years. Whether it's personalization, supply chain, inventory management, forecast systems, NLP, robotics, autonomous systems, you name it, we are bringing these innovations to everyone and especially to startups. Now, I bring up this slide for 3 reasons. First, it's making sure that we know that ML is one of those core components of reinvention and innovation. 2 is we've been there. We've seen some of the mistakes that can happen with machine learning. And so as we're bringing new products to market, they are solving the problems that we've seen over the last 20 years. And number 3 is this is accessible to startups. One of the things that I love is that our services are helpful to Fortune 10 companies or to tiny 2-person startups living out of a garage. And so that accessibility comes from the breadth of services that we offer into the market. For those of you that joined the machine learning keynotes this year at reInvent, you know that more machine learning happens on AWS than anywhere else. This stat shows that 10,000 plus companies use AWS machine learning. It's actually tens of thousands of companies using SageMaker alone. Now, when it comes to deep learning frameworks, 92% of all TensorFlow in the cloud runs on AWS, 91% of all PyTorch in the cloud runs on AWS, and we've scored some of the top marks on Stanford's Dawn Bench. Now, the reason I say this is obviously to share that more ML happens on AWS, and you should too, but really it's because we're learning from all those. We're learning those best practices, and we're constantly innovating and bringing those new releases to market. It's incredible to see just how many startups are building their ML practice on AWS. There are thousands of startups. I'll call out a couple just so you guys can see the breadth, from fintech companies like Betterment and Coinbase, Aurora, which is a self-driving car company founded about 4 years ago. They have $700 million in funding, and they're running billions of miles of log simulations in the cloud using EC2, P3, and Inferentia instances. We've got Tecton AI that just raised over $30 million for their Series B to build a feature store. And we've got Abacus AI, who just raised over $20 million in their Series B, really diving into synthetic data generation to help improve deep learning models when it comes to noisy and incomplete data. Now, when it comes to ML innovation, we've got a lot. AWS had over 250 machine learning releases in 2020 alone. I highly suggest that your team takes time to learn about some of the releases on the right-hand side of this slide, whether it comes to cost optimization, DevOps, ML in production, data prep and management, huge topic. But we're going to stay focused on the left-hand side, adding AI into your apps and incorporating ML into some database use cases. At AWS, we're innovating on behalf of our customer to bring the broadest and deepest set of machine learning products at scale. We are making sure that every developer and every data scientist can take advantage of machine learning, and we're really focused on removing the undifferentiated heavy lifting of machine learning. So at the top layer of our stack is our AI services. This is for developers to easily add ML into their applications without any ML skills. These are pre-trained models, these are grab and go, these are the quick wins that we're going to mostly be covering. And just to share, startups that we work with say that they can get started on this top layer in a few hours to say 2 weeks. Again, this is really fast iteration depending on their complexity. A couple examples here, I'll talk about the speech category. So we've got speech to text, which is Amazon Transcribe. You can think of that as like closed captioning. And we also have text to speech, which is Amazon Poly. Those two things combined allow you to take speech, put it into a computer understandable language, text, and then generate speech again. So when you're thinking of conversational AI, you're going to have not only that speech component, but also the dialogue component through Lex. We also have computer vision APIs, Amazon Recognition that we'll be talking about, or Amazon Kendra, which allows you to kind of quickly search for an answer buried in tens of thousands of documents, almost like creating your own search engine. In the middle of the stack, we have Amazon SageMaker, which is providing every developer and data scientist the ability to build, train, and deploy models at scale. Now, while we won't be diving into SageMaker in this talk, I need you guys to remember this word, Jumpstart. Please go check out SageMaker Jumpstart. This includes over 100 example notebooks, over 15 pre-built algorithms, built-in algorithms that you guys can leverage. And we also have auto ML capabilities. This is going to make you building your own models with your own data a lot easier. And at the bottom of the layer, for expert ML practitioners, we're making sure that those practitioners can develop on the deep learning framework of their choice, like TensorFlow and PyTorch, through SageMaker, or use our deep learning AMIs, or Amazon Machine Images, which are fully configured with the latest versions of the most popular deep learning frameworks and tools. We'll be focused on the top of the stack. Now, there are a lot of ways to break down how a startup can adopt machine learning. Sometimes you'll see it broken out by industry, but I know that you guys are representing probably over 60 industries, so can't really do that. Sometimes you'll see it broken out by use case, and we'll be doing that a few times throughout this talk. But to make it incredibly easy, we're actually going to break it down by data types. And I'll be infusing industries as we go through the presentation. So first up, if your startup deals with images, cameras, videos, media files, anything that's just visual content, I want you all to check out Amazon Rekognition with a K. We've got tons of pre-built models that your team can take advantage of. And I'll just give an example. So let's check out content moderation, top row, third from the left. Let's say that your startup is taking in images and you want to redisplay user-generated content somewhere, but you don't want to manually review millions of images as they come in. So you can use our content moderation API that's going to automatically detect things like nudity, hate symbols, rude gestures, violence, and gore, so that your system can have an intermediary layer that's going to remove not safe for work content so that the images that you display will be more likely to be appropriate content. We've also got things like face detection so that you can say, count how many people are in a room. And we've got things like object scene and activity detection, which we're going to be talking about on the next slide. So, common applications of Amazon Rekognition. First is workplace safety, and I'll show a PPE detection model on the next slide. Identity verification, really big for fintech startups. This is to make sure that the person in front of the camera is who you think it is. So whether it's Ali Miller, Werner Vogels, whoever you'd like it to be, that is going to check ID. This is really big for KYC, or know your customer use cases. Now, media analysis, this third section, very popular among startups. This is probably the biggest. And this is managing content, right? So let's say you have 50 million images and you want to find all the images related to nature. Now, without machine learning, what you would do is go into your database of 50 million images, and you would manually go through and click each image wanting to find a nature photo. That would take somewhere between several minutes and several hours, depending on how many nature photos you have. Using machine learning, you're able to do this much quicker, right? So this is catalog management. This is easily finding sections of videos that have to do with specific scenes or topics that you're looking for, specific actions, also inappropriate content like we mentioned in our last example. And last, a little less likely in startups, but if you're in the industrial and retail space, I'll talk about damage detection in 2 slides. So PPE detection, obviously very big during COVID, but I want to widen the scope and say that PPE is also any sort of protection equipment. So it could be a helmet on a construction site, for example. So this is showing how this API works. And I want to make sure that devs watching this, your role in using the top of the layer stack is really 2 things. One is knowing where your IP is and using ML on maybe things that are not your core IP. So let's say that you are, a fintech startup. You're going to focus on that fintech piece, and you want to automate the undifferentiated heavy lifting of the other pieces, like say KYC and identification. But the other piece that you need to become a master of is understanding the output of these AI APIs. So that's where we're going to focus on this slide. PPE detection, actually a pretty simple model to understand what the output's going to be. I feed it one image, one JPEG. Obviously, this is a ridiculous, use of a mask because it's not covering my nose. And so it's going to check for a couple things. First, it's whether there's an actual person in the image. So that's that larger bounding box, and it's going to return those pixel locations so that you can draw a box as well. Next is whether a face is detected. So it's doing things like landmark detection on eyes and nose to figure out whether there's a face in the image. It's going to do face cover detection. So that's not actually tracking where the face cover is. It could be over my eyes, it could be over my mouth and nose, but it's detecting whether a mask is actually there. And so the fourth is the really important one, and this is why people use ML at scale. Is the face cover on my nose, yes or no? And so the return from this API, from this JSON output, is going to say false. And so your job is to figure out what you want to do with that output, what you want to do with that workflow. If, say, this is at a building entrance for a retail, maybe you shut the doors and flare a red light. If it's an image and you want to put up images of people wearing correct masks, right? Maybe you're going to filter this photo out. So the actual integration into your workflow is up to you, but this is sort of what that output is going to look like. Now, the last section of Amazon recognition is custom labels. And I know you're going to hear custom and you're going to think I can't do that. You can absolutely do this. This is low code, no code, custom computer vision model creation. What you might be wanting to build, let's say you're a healthcare inventory startup, you're in the med device space, and you want to create a custom model that detects different types of stethoscopes and thermometers. So rather than fine-tuning the model and really getting into the depths of it, what you're going to do is, through a guided process, bring at least 10 images of each type of stethoscope and 10 images of each type of thermometer, and the system itself is going to train with a single click. And it's going to create an API endpoint that is just for you. No one else can access it. It is fully built on your data using transfer learning from other computer vision models. And that API endpoint is fully managed and scalable and managed on AWS servers. So if you have 10,000 API calls on day 1, 2 API calls on day 2, and 1 million API calls on day 3, all of that is fully managed and you are only charged for what you use. So we've talked about images. Now, if your startup deals with pretty much anything on paper, that could be documents, forms, invoices, I want you to check out Amazon Textract. Now, the reason machine learning is important for document understanding is that the current solutions within the document understanding space are pretty expensive, time-consuming, and much more prone to error, whether that's manual processing or using OCR or using rules-based templates. They're pretty limited. And so when it comes to ML, we're able to do something with Amazon Textract to extract things like text, fields, values, tables, handwriting, to be able to see what your document actually says and turn it from like a flat document, so a PNG or a PDF, into a computer readable format so that you can do things like natural language understanding on top of it. Now, when we talk about how to embed Textract in your workflow, after you extract the actual values and text from the document, I do want to make sure that you guys are aware of something called Amazon Augmented AI, or A2I. This is basically like taking the low confidence values and fixing them, right? So let's say your document has 100 outputs, 99 of them are really high confident. You're able to send that back to your client application. A2I is basically a rerouting for the low confidence outputs, the low confidence predictions. So that gets sent to multiple humans to do re-review. That new highly accurate prediction goes back into S3 and then also gets returned to your client application. So the end result is highly accurate and done more quickly and more efficiently. I want to show you guys an example Textract output. And I also want to mention that all of the APIs that I'm talking about, you can test them for free in the AWS console. So this is straight from the console. This is a screenshot. You guys can go check it out after this talk. So Textract is going to be able to take in, this is an employee application. So you can see it's able to pick up on full name, Jane Doe, phone number. Those are computer written text, right? That looks like Arial font size 12, but it's also able to pick up on the handwriting. It's able to pick up on 123 any street, and it's able to return all of that as raw text. You can also extract the table. You can see on the bottom portion, previous employment history. And so you're able to take all of those outputs and make it into a computer readable format. Now, again, what you do with this is up to you. You could say that everyone who's from New Jersey, filter it over here. Everyone who's from New York, filter it over here. And I'll give you an example of a startup that uses this. Bluevine was in the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, and the amazing scale that they were able to hit. This is integrating within a couple of days. They're able to process tens of thousands of pages per day. Now, I don't know how fast you flip through paper, but that feels very fast to me. All right, we've talked about documents. Now let's talk about what to do with the actual output. So if your startup deals with kind of any natural language, paragraphs, email, tweets, social media, form fills, we're going to be talking about several APIs in this category. First is Amazon Comprehend. Now, there are a lot of use cases for this. I'll talk about a couple here. One is customer sentiment analysis, the bottom left. So let's say you get a lot of emails or a lot of inbound tickets, and you want to deal with the most angry people first. So you're able to run Comprehend to figure out who is happy, sad, angry, and so maybe those that are labeled as angry, you want to triage those first. We also can think about other ways of ticket routing within customer support. So let's say that your startup is in the healthcare space, and whether someone is a patient or a doctor or an ACO, you want to be able to triage those three differently. So depending on the context and the word choice and the entities and topics found in this paragraph or in this several paragraph email, you're going to be able to automatically route those so that your customer support members can be more specialized to help those certain problems. The last one that I'll talk about is the top row, third from the left, which is documents and media tagging. Now, in the same way that Amazon Recognition helped you manage a catalog of images, Comprehend can help you manage a catalog of words. And those words can be documents or other media types. It could be articles, your blog posts, whatever. But the top topics that are extracted from that, think of it as like automatic, keyword tagging. So it allows you to more easily search, extract, bubble up, combine, and draw insights on those aggregated sets. Now, I just want to call out a couple of the types of things that Amazon Comprehend can pick up on. So as I mentioned, you're going to feed the system emails, chats, social media, clips, phone call, transcriptions. And so you're going to send that to the Amazon Comprehend API, again, only being charged for what you used. And it's going to return any of these that you select, right? So it could return PII, which we'll show on the next slide, could show sentiment, which we talked about, entities, which I sort of broadly think of as nouns. This could be like people, organizations, places, could return key phrases. I love that it automatically returns the language that it's written in. So just to show you an example, I took the exact same paragraph, something about Kevin Miller and his bank account, and so I ran it through Amazon Comprehend to show you side by side of two different API calls, entity detection and PII detection, and what those returns would look like. So on the left, we see things like Kevin Miller. We're 99% confident that that is a person. We see any company, financial services, LLC, which for us, clearly a company name, but the computer is also able to pick up that this is an organization, 99% confident, and so on and so forth. On the right-hand side is PII detection. So Kevin Miller, someone's full name, is PII. But any company, the name of the company, is not PII. So you're not going to see that returned. And so when we think of things like bank account numbers, right, maybe your workflow is to black out any PII. Maybe your workflow is anything with a PII gets saved into a different S3 bucket. There are a lot of things that you can do downstream with this workflow, but it is up to you. ML is just going to be able to detect where the PII is and how confident it is that it found it. Now, another release this year at re:Invent is Amazon Aurora ML. This is basically using SQL to actually get that ML inference. So super quick example, but you can either invoke a SageMaker endpoint or, as I was mentioning, sentiment analysis through Amazon Comprehend. And you can do that with SQL code. So there's no glue code. This is like 2 lines of code, incredibly easy, calling it direct with SQL functions. Now, almost every time I talk to a startup, they're focused on this big vision of going global. And it's really hard to go global if you're not incorporating something like Amazon Translate. So Amazon Translate is a state-of-the-art neural machine translation that uses deep learning models to perform language-to-language transformation in context, producing fluent and complete sentences. Amazon Translate uses something called attention mechanisms to understand the context around a certain word so that as it's translating the next target word, it's taking into account the context that came around it. Now, I want to share a couple stats here. This is really important as you think about your end customers. 80% of customers prefer a personalized experience. 51% of customers prefer content in their own language. And this is the big one. 55% of people say that if they can't read something, they won't buy it. So we provide 55 languages of coverage. And when you think of X to Y translations, that's almost 3,000 combinations. This is a super quick example, also taking into account that these full sentences can be translated in under 200 milliseconds. If it's something shorter, like a text, it can be translated in under 150 milliseconds. So this is a super quick example, obviously that I wrote as a joke inside the console, but did you know that there are online tools that can translate your content for you? Now, it automatically detected that I wrote it in English. I select that I want to translate it into French, and so it's able to say, saviez-vous, let's try this one more time because I used to take French. Saviez-vous qu'il existe des outils en ligne qui peuvent traduire votre contenu pour vous? I am so sorry to the native French speakers. That's as close as I'm going to get. Obviously, we also have Polly that can read that out loud for you. All right, so we've covered a lot, but I also want to make sure that you know that machine learning can be applied to internal metrics as well for internal efficiencies. And thus, I would like to present Amazon Lookout for Metrics. This is an anomaly detection service currently available in preview. And this is almost like a watchdog on your business and operational metrics with root cause analysis. So I'll call out a couple examples just so you have them. Let's say it's customer engagement metrics like login, click, views, purchases, screen time, bounce rates. It could be operational metrics like CPU utilization, latency, error rates. Could be sales metrics like the number of leads or win rates or pipeline coverage. Could be marketing metrics like traffic volume, revenue, churn across certain campaigns. But this is what I like to say. Startups, you are so busy. You work 7 days a week. You're sweating, breaking a back, trying to grow your business and focusing on your IP and fundraising from VCs and trying to get customers, that sitting and watching your internal metrics and making sure nothing's going wrong is kind of a waste of time. This is why machine learning is so important. It's basically like having an intern, right? Watching your metrics 24/7, always on, making sure that nothing is out of the ordinary so that you can focus on your core business. I love this product. Okay, last one, and probably my favorite, is Amazon Personalize. This is helpful for if you have any sort of SKUs. This might be different videos that you show to your customers, different blog posts. Maybe you're selling different consumer goods, you're a CPG company. Maybe you're offering different discount offers or courses, but you want to personalize that experience to your end customer. Welcome to Amazon Personalize. This is based on the Amazon personalization, Amazon.com, a pioneer of personalization. This is built on 20 years of Amazon.com's experience. Through our experience, we recognize that different personalization strategies are needed for different use cases. And so you'll see there's actually different underlying models that are built within Amazon Personalize. And really, this is to deliver a unique experience to each of these individual customers and their preferences and their behaviors, rather than sort of applying generic segments. This is kind of the opposite of one size fits all. And this is being able to do it in real time. So couple, things to call out on this slide. You're taking user events, interactions like views, signups, clicks. You might take the item metadata. And when I say item, I mean the SKU. The item could be blog post or a video or a discount. And so maybe you'll take the topic of the video, right? And then you also might have user metadata. That might be age, location, household income, whatever. And so you're going to combine all of those details. And so Amazon Personalize is going to create everything in that dotted line is under the hood. That is fully managed by Amazon Personalize. And you're going to be able to do things like data processing, identifying those features. It's going to select underlying models like an HRNN, a hierarchical recurrent network, neural network. It's going to optimize the model. It's even going to host the endpoint for you in a fully managed way. It's using your data to create a custom recommendation engine model. Now, like recognition custom labels, that API endpoint is only for you. It's fully scalable, and you're able to access it in a fully scalable way. And this is used by large companies like Zola and Domino's, startups like Coursera. And one example that I'll just share here, StockX is kind of like a New York stock exchange for high-priced trade commodities like streetwear or cool sneakers. And StockX integrated Amazon Personalize into their homepage. They had a recommended for you tile. It was actually the second tile on their page. It ended up being the top performing tile on their page and increased customer engagement by 50%. So when you think of the best product experience that you've had on many other platforms, I bet you've enjoyed the recommended for you. This is basically like building your own. I hope you all enjoyed that lightning round walkthrough of machine learning on AWS and some of those quick wins that your team can take advantage of. Now, I'm bringing back this slide because I just want to remember that there's so much richness for your team to take advantage of. We mostly focused on the top of the stack, our AI services, our pre-trained APIs, and even then we barely scratched the surface on them. But please make sure to sit down with your team and review some of these top machine learning products that your team could take advantage of. And I'm going to leave you with these 3 next steps. Number 1 is learn. Your team is going to be upskilled with machine learning, and I know that you'll be able to take advantage of some of these products that we discussed and a lot of them that we didn't even get to cover. So head to aws.training/machine learning. There are plenty of free machine learning courses that your team can take advantage of for developers, for data scientists, for architects, for business decision makers. And if you want to learn more about our products, head to ml.aws. One of my favorite shortcuts for all these products is if you're interested in it, go to the documentation and click Getting Started. Those are some of the easiest tutorials. Most of these things you can start building in about 10 minutes. Number 2 is connect. I am obsessed with helping startups, and our entire team is obsessed with helping startups. And one of the best ways that we can help you is if we're talking. So if you want to get in touch with AWS, I always say start with your account manager. And if you don't know who your account manager is, just go check out that other link. That's the contact form for startups and machine learning. And the last, making sure that the power of ML gets into your hands is built. That's what devs do best. That's what data scientists do best. That's frankly what startups do best. And I know that we shared a lot of information, and all of the other talks are covering so many more things in AI ML. To the best of your ability, keep it tactical, keep it approachable, and keep it small, right? Make sure that scope is able to be finished maybe in the next 2 weeks, right? Maybe a week from now, you will already have one of these things incorporated into your product. It's absolutely amazing what startups can do. So thank you so much for attending this talk. I know I am extremely passionate about startups and machine learning. I hope that I passed a little bit of that on to you, and I can't wait to see what you build. Thanks so much.